Post claim, which states that homeschooling has a significant advantage over the public school system. And her secondary claims were that homeschooling provides a stronger foundation of education, children develop more individualistically, and homeschool children develop adequate social skills through alternative activities. While going on to the first claim, she said that homeschooling provides a stronger foundation of education rather than public school. But from data from the National Center of Education Statistics, it shows that homeschool children do better in wealthier families where parents are more motivated. And that tends to result in better public scores for like standardized tests. And according to Huffington Post, it states that students in public school who take tests as well as private school, they do very similar, but people in like with areas with high poverty rate, they results poorer. So the advocate failed to mention that the student demographic, where they come from, and that affects their standardized tests. And it also states that public school offers more academic opportunities like advanced placement classes or any like honor classes, which is not provided at any charter school or like homeschooling. And it's also important to note that in public school, teachers are required to be certified by the states, and it's an ongoing education, and they have to be renewed every now and then. And this isn't required for private school or charter school, so their level of education could not match. Moving on to my secondary claim, the advocate claimed that homeschool children develop more individuality, and she claimed that when you're homeschooled, you have more free time to develop your interests. And that could be true, but according to the Orange County Department of Education, it states that in California, you have to spend at least 5 hours a day for your homeschooling students. And if we were to look at the National Center of Education Statistics, it reports that in California, the average schooling a day for kids is 6 hours. And if you take away lunch and take away all the breaks, that's like the same time as how much you should spend at a homeschool. So the advocate failed to prove that the time available that was actually made for homeschool students. And it's also important to note that in public schools, you're offered more opportunity to more clubs and organizations and different types of classes to build your interests. There's over at least 100 different types of different electives and opportunities offered that we don't really participate in. And moving on to the last claim. The homeschool children develop adequate social skills through alternative activities. That could be true, but the advocate mentioned that they go to charter school to develop that social activities that they could develop. But from Huffington Post, it says that charter schools it mentions how charter school leaves out special needs students. So if that was the case, if they didn't get that special need that they needed from charter school, that they're going to be completely isolated. And so public school just provides opportunities for every single children in the community, and it's noted by law that public school cannot turn away any students regardless of their academic performance or disabilities. So I would like to conclude that the homeschooling does not have a significant advantage over the public school system because the public school system does just as well as, does better or as well, or there's no real proven fact. It's practically the same. Thank you. Okay, the structure is easy to follow. The first point talks about
the foundation that we're discussing, and you begin by talking about what the relative amount of time is that the students spend, and you're saying that they are basically equivalent, so the same amount of time spent in a public school is the same amount of time that would be spent in a homeschool environment. The notion that those are equivalent, I think, may miss some of the things, the nuances that the advocate talked about. 5 hours with 30 people in a room is not the same thing as 5 hours with one person in a room, and I'm not exactly sure that you're equating those things is the most effective way to respond to that point. The discrepancy on how people are doing better because they come from wealthier backgrounds, I think that that's a good piece of information, but I do suspect that it's probably applicable to both public schools and to homeschooling as well. So I'm not exactly sure how that means that public schools would offer a better alternative, except that, for instance, you could maybe show that there is likely to be equipment or access to tools or resources in a public school that a poor, or even in a poor public school, that would be not available to poorer families who are trying to homeschool their kids. The one example that you gave was advanced placement. I thought that was a pretty good example, although I don't remember if the advocate, I heard 2 or 3 speeches about this issue, and one of them limited the discussion to elementary levels, grades K through 8. And if that was this one, well, they wouldn't be worried about that because advanced placement is not an issue that you would be concerned with. Like I said, I can't quite remember which one was going on there. The other argument about these alternative activities and such, I think that you need some illustrations of those things, especially when it comes to resources. The idea that there are lots of alternatives that are available through public schools that would not necessarily be available through homeschooling. I think you need a little bit more documentation there. But, it was easy to follow, and I thought you found some good evidence to respond to points.